At midnight, the city sounds different here. The traffic around Beach Road fades into a low mechanical breath. The lights from the hotels and office towers stay on, but the space beneath the Civilian War Memorial feels strangely hollow. Every year, on the 15th of February, Singapore remembers the day it fell in 1942. But after the ceremonies end, after the wreaths are laid, after the last footsteps leave the park, some people say the memorial receives other visitors. Not tourists, not mourners, not anyone recorded clearly on camera. Just shapes near the base of the monument. Quiet figures standing where no one was standing seconds before. And sometimes, the faint sound of many people walking together. On the 15th of February 1942, Singapore surrendered to Japanese forces. What followed was 3 years and 8 months of occupation, fear, hunger, forced labor, disappearances, and killings. Among the darkest chapters was Operation Sook Ching, a purge that targeted civilians, especially Chinese men suspected of being anti-Japanese. Many were taken away. Some were brought to beaches, some to remote roads, some to places that were never properly recorded. Families waited outside screening centers, police stations, schools, and open fields. Many waited for men who never came home. Years after the war, remains were still being found. Mass graves, bones, fragments, evidence of lives interrupted so violently that many names were never recovered. Before the memorial was completed, hundreds of urns containing remains of civilian victims were placed there. So the Civilian War Memorial is not only a monument, it is also a tomb. And that is why some older Singaporeans never spoke of it casually. They did not call it haunted. They said it was occupied. The 15th of February is not just a date. It is the anniversary of surrender, a day of remembrance, a day when names are spoken again. For most people, it ends with silence. But according to several retellings passed quietly among security guards, late-night drivers, and people who have walked through the area after midnight, the memorial changes after the anniversary ceremonies. The air becomes colder near the steps. The open plaza feels crowded even when empty. And sometimes, people report the feeling that they are not approaching the memorial, but interrupting it. One account comes from a night security guard who worked nearby in the late 1990s. He claimed that after midnight on the 15th of February, he saw a line of people standing at the base of the memorial. Not a crowd, a line, still, orderly, facing the pillars. He assumed it was a late memorial group, perhaps relatives who had come after work. But there was something wrong with their posture. No one shifted weight. No one checked a phone. No one spoke. And when he crossed the road to tell them the park was closed, the line was gone. Only the wreaths remained. But on the wet ground, he claimed he saw footprints, bare footprints, leading toward the memorial. None leading away. Another story is told among older taxi drivers. A driver said he picked up an elderly man near the memorial shortly after midnight. The man was thin, soaked from the rain, and holding what looked like a folded paper bundle. He gave no exact destination, only said in Hokkien, "Take me home." The driver asked where home was. The passenger looked out the window and said, "Siglap." As they drove east, the driver noticed the back seat had become cold. At a red light, he looked into the rear-view mirror. The old man was gone. On the seat was a damp paper packet. Inside were joss paper ashes, and a small stone still smelling faintly of seawater. In many Asian traditions, the dead are not feared simply because they are dead. They are feared when they are forgotten. A grave without a name, a body without proper rites, a family without confirmation. These are wounds that do not close cleanly. For victims of wartime massacres, the horror was not only death. It was disappearance. No final words, no body returned, no proper farewell. So when people speak of presences near the civilian war memorial, they rarely describe monsters. They describe mourners, men standing in silence, women searching faces, children holding hands with no one. A paranormal researcher who visited the site in the early 2010s described a strange audio pattern. He recorded nothing unusual at first, only traffic, wind, the soft electronic hiss of the camera microphone. Then, at 12:07 a.m., the recorder picked up footsteps, not one pair. Many. Slow, synchronized, moving across stone. But the video showed no one. The researcher later said the strangest part was not the sound. It was the direction. The footsteps were not moving randomly. They were approaching the center of the memorial. Like a procession. Like people arriving for a ceremony that had never ended. The four pillars are often understood as representing Singapore's major communities: Chinese, Malay, Indian, and Eurasian, bound together in shared suffering. In daylight, the memorial is open, dignified, almost peaceful. But at night, when the pillars disappear into darkness, they seem less like architecture and more like witnesses. Witnesses to names lost, witnesses to families broken, witnesses to a history that still breathes beneath the ground. And that may be why the stories persist. Because some places do not need ghosts to feel haunted. Memory is enough. The most unsettling account involves an audio recording. A small team came to the memorial after the annual commemoration, hoping to capture ambient sound for a documentary. They expected traffic noise. Instead, during playback, they heard a voice. Soft, male, close to the microphone. It did not scream. It did not threaten. It simply repeated a name. Again and again. The team searched old records, but could not confirm whether the name belonged to a victim. That uncertainty made it worse. Because if the voice was real, then it was not trying to frighten anyone. It was trying to be remembered. In one version of the story, a camera was left recording overnight. For hours, nothing happened. Then at 2:15 a.m., the image shook, not violently, just enough to suggest someone had touched the tripod. The frame tilted slightly toward the base of the memorial. For 3 seconds, the microphone picked up a sound like cloth brushing against stone. Then a voice, very close, whispered something in Mandarin. The translation was disputed. Some said it meant, "We are here." Others said it meant, "Do not count us." The file was never released publicly. Only the story remained, and maybe that is fitting, because this place was never about spectacle. It was about absence. By morning, the memorial looks ordinary again. Clean stone, open sky, traffic returning, people walking past without slowing down. But every the 15th of February, as Singapore remembers the day it fell, some believe the dead gather too, not to harm, not to haunt, but to stand together beneath the pillars, waiting for the living to remember what was taken from them. And after midnight, if you pass the Civilian War Memorial and hear footsteps behind you, do not turn too quickly. Some visitors are not arriving. They are returning.